Now is Alyssa Merwin, Global VP of LinkedIn Sales Solution. Alyssa, so glad to have you on this morning. Can you just start by talking to us a little bit about how did you go about creating your own career path?
Sure. And Alicia, thanks so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here. The career path that I've been on is one that I probably couldn't have predicted. I got into sales by accident, but I have to tell you that the minute I got into the profession, I realized what an amazing profession it was because it's an opportunity to be so entrepreneurial, an opportunity to be sort of the CEO of your own business. And, I've had the opportunity to work at two companies, which is a bit unique in today's world, but it's given me some incredible experiences. And I have to say that as sort of reflect on where I am today and what's gotten me here, I think there's really one key sort of decision that I've kept in mind throughout the career that's made a tremendous difference. And that has been focusing on skills and learning versus chasing titles. And I'll give you a quick example. I had the opportunity a few years ago to step into what would have been a much larger role, a promotion. And I realized that more of the same of what I was already doing probably wouldn't put me on the path to where I ultimately wanted to be. And I realized that I had gaps in my skills and experience. And so I ended up turning down the promotion and instead taking a lateral move that gave me that learning and that experience that I think put me on the path to the role that I'm in today. And so I think that's one of my big takeaways from reflecting on what's worked for me and some of the advice that I give to other women charting their own course.
I mean, that points to a long-term perspective in your career. And I think oftentimes what you were saying there, we look at that next big promotion and we're so focused on that next step that we may lose sight of the long-term vision and the end goal that we're trying to get to. Can you talk a little bit about, what tips you have for staying on that long-term mentality when you're thinking about your career path?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's so easy to focus on the short term because we're thinking about, what's my next role or how do I get the promotion? But I think if we can remember that our careers have a much longer arc and there's an opportunity, and it gives us just an opportunity to step back and to think about, what are the skills that I want? What are the experiences? Who do I want to learn from? Who do I want to work for? And when we give ourselves the space to not think about the near and the urgent and instead to think on that longer horizon, I think it helps us to make better decisions. And one piece of advice that I often share is let's not think about the next job. Let's actually think about the next role or even the next role. And when we do that, I think it allows us to make those better decisions and get that broader base of experience that sets us up for the big roles over time.
Yeah, the one that you dream about at the end of the day that you have to kind of continuously focus on instead of just what's right in front of you. You lead a team of over 1,000 people across the globe. Can't imagine how you do that, but obviously you do it well. How do you determine, how did you get to a point where you were able to determine like your leadership style that has led you to this point where you can be successful at doing this?
Well, today, two hallmarks of my leadership style are authenticity and vulnerability. But I have to tell you, I learned it the hard way. When I came to LinkedIn in about 10 years ago, and I stepped into a leadership role that I thought I could do in my sleep. I came in and I wanted to make an impact, and I wanted to prove that I was capable, and so I just went for it. And a few months into that job, my manager said, Alyssa, I have to give you some feedback. He said, you are not resonating with your team. And he said, your team would not go into battle for you. And as a leader, I mean, that's a gut punch moment. It rocked me to my core. And I had to really take a look in the mirror and figure out what was I doing that was making this disconnect between how I thought I was showing up and how my team was feeling about me. And I realized that I was sort of showing up with just this one little sliver of who I was, which was the driver and the performer and the sort of manager. And I hadn't shared who I was as a person, and I hadn't taken the time to get to know them. And it really put me on a journey of getting to know people as people first and professionals second, and to be able to bring my whole self to work and to make space for them to do the same. And so as painful as that moment was, it really was a catalyst in helping me become the person and the leader that I am today. And it was really painful at the time, but I'm so thankful that it happened.
To that point, it's one of the things I love talking about when I talk to people who have been able to kind of get to the successful points in their career that you have, is that people often see you at the pinnacle and don't realize all that it took to get there and the journey along the way. Can you talk a little bit more about some of the other obstacles that you've had to overcome in your own personal journey to land you at the place that you are at now?
Yes, I mean, as planful and thoughtful as we want to be about our careers, they don't always go as planned. And there was a time not that long ago where there was a job I really, really wanted, and I was passed over for that role. And I was feeling rejected, and I was disappointed, and I was upset, and all of the emotions you can imagine. And once I sort of got through that moment of frustration and being upset, I started to look at the role that I was in through a different lens, and I brought a different perspective, and I said, okay, this is what I have to work with. How can I make this role great? And I realized that because the role was a little bit less exciting and a little bit more under the radar, I had a bit more autonomy, and it gave me some space to experiment and to incubate some ideas that I had that ultimately I was able to roll out across the company. And it gave me this platform to actually show what I was capable of, even though the role itself was not as exciting as the role I had wanted. And so as I reflect back, I think there were two learnings for me. One, the role that we have, it's all about perspective. How do we take the energy and the opportunity that we have and think about what we can make of the role that we're in? And then the second is those momentary setbacks, as hard as they are in the moment, sometimes give us the space and the growth that we need to actually put us on the right path.
I heard recently, I was in social media, I was watching a video that someone said, what if I told you every time you, instead of hearing no and being deflated by that, what if I told you that it would take 10 no's to get to that one yes that changes everything for you? You would look at no differently, which is the argument of like flipping the perspective, really changing your mindset when it comes to these moments, because in the end, they might prove beneficial. And the most successful people like yourself say that time and time again. So we got to take that sage advice. Alyssa, really appreciate your time and your insight. Alyssa Merwin, Global VP of LinkedIn Sales Solutions.